Hello and welcome to Lockdown Report number 7. In this edition we're going to do some follow-ups on previous reports and we're going to look at the true trusting in God faith experience. So let's get on with the video. So welcome to Lockdown Report number 7. I hope that you're all keeping safe and well and enjoying the good weather that we've been having so far. You may remember that in the last report we looked at how some people, in particular some religious organisations, have been ignoring government advice and have been continuing to gather together, and whether this is actually a demonstration of faith in God or whether it's just ignoring good advice. Now, I'm going to show you another report. This time it's from the country of Myanmar, which is just north of Thailand. And you can see here that there is one particular church where the pastor there was claiming that faith in God was a shield against the virus. And he claimed that none of his congregation would contract the coronavirus. Well, he's now been arrested, himself and 3 others. They face up to 3 years in prison. All 4 have tested positive for COVID-19 and they will be held until they recover and then they will face trial. It is believed that they are actually responsible for 22 out of the 100 cases that have been reported in that country. So 22% of the infections are down to one man's decision to continue to hold church gatherings, and of course his followers to go along with him. In the last edition, we also looked at real voices of real people, and hopefully this will be a segment that we will have in every video. And so, well, here's this edition's segment, Real Voices of Real People.
Hi, my name is Victoria. I just want to talk about my lockdown period with my God. I can spend much more time, be more in tune with what I want and how I want to praise my God, and knowing and listening around and seeing him come through for me in everything. I am thankful for, my friends and my church family who has been there for me, and know I can call on them. I can spend much more time listening to music and understanding what God has been doing for my life and seeing, his protection over my life. So I'm very, very thankful for everything that he's been doing.
Next, I want to turn to Australia. There we have a situation where, like in many other countries, just before the lockdown took place, people were going out and were bulk buying supplies. Now, we're not talking here about people who just want to get a few extra things in to last them through. This is more to do with people who are buying huge amounts, literally buying out entire stores. The reason being they want to resell them and make a profit, and particularly they're trying to make a profit out of poor people, out of elderly people who don't have the resources to stock up. Well, now many of the supermarkets, as you've probably seen, are now getting all the goods back in stock. We no longer have the empty shelves that we used to have. And so now some of these people, they found that eBay, Amazon have both refused to allow them to sell at some of the incredible markups that they had. Some people were selling for 5,000% profit. Well, they've been shut down. And so now they're stuck with the goods and try to take them back to the shops they got them from. Let's have a look at this report from Australia.
So 2020, the year of Glen 20, or the year of toilet paper, the scenes that everyone has seen with the toilet paper has been absolutely ridiculous. And I had my first customer yesterday who said he wanted to get a refund on 150 packets of 32-pack toilet paper and 150 units of 1 litre sanitizer. I told him that is the sort of person that is causing the problem in the whole country.
Now, this brings me also to what should our response be in a time of crisis from people of faith. Do we have any example in the Bible that tells us the way we should respond? We're going to look at 1 Kings chapter 17 and the story of Elijah and what happened when a famine came on the country and God's advice to Elijah. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Get thee hence, and turn thee eastward, and hide thyself by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed thee there. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and dwelt by the brook Cherith, that is before Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and the bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. At the brook of Cherith, God provided for him. Now, where did the food come from? Well, the scriptures tell us that God got the birds to bring the food to Elijah. But have you ever thought about where the birds got that food from? Now, it would seem to me that the only person who would not be suffering during the time of famine would be the king. Surely the king's table would continue to be spread with the finest goods that were available. I wonder, did God send the birds to go and take the food off the king's table and bring it to Elijah? Was Elijah provided with the best food that was available at that time? You know, when God says he's going to look after us, it doesn't mean that he's going to give us the scraps. It means that he's going to make sure that we have exactly what we need, the best food that's available. In the book Desire of Ages, on page 360, Ellen White writes this:
A great work was before them, and first of all they must learn that their strength was not in self, but in God. Like Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, like David among the hills of Judea, or Elijah by the brook Cherith, the disciples needed to come apart from the scenes of their busy activity, to commune with Christ, with nature, and with their own hearts.
And in the book Maranatha, on page 181, we find,
The Lord has shown me in vision repeatedly that it is contrary to the Bible to make any provision for our temporal wants in the time of trouble. I saw that if the saints have food laid up by them or in the fields, in the time of trouble when sword, famine, and pestilence are in the land, it will be taken from them by violent hands, and strangers would reap their fields. Then will be the time for us to trust wholly in God, and He will sustain us. I saw that our bread and water would be sure at that time, and we should not lack or suffer hunger. The Lord has shown me that some of His children would fear when they see the price of food rising, and they would buy food and lay it by for the time of trouble. Then in a time of need, I saw them go to their food and look at it, and it had bred worms, and was full of living creatures and not fit for use.
so God tells us that in times of trouble, our food, our drink will be assured. You may recall in previous reports I've told you how we have had food coming to us just at the right time. Well, once again, at the end of last week, the same thing happened. Here you can see food that was sent to us, plus we had some other supplies came as well, and also because there are bills that need to be paid, just at the right time, God has arranged for support to come to us so that we are able to do that which is necessary. This is a lesson that we can all learn during this time, to trust in God. And it reminds me of a time when my family and I went out onto the mission field. We were living on the top of what I can only describe as a mountain at the time, and we had to come down off the mountain to go and get our supplies. Well, sometime soon after we got there, our clothes hadn't arrived yet. We had most of our belongings were still in transit, and I went down off the mountain with a translator to go and buy some food for the family. I spent all the money that we had on the food, to the extent where I didn't have the money left to pay for the taxi to take us back up the mountain, and we had so much that we'd bought, we needed to have some means of getting up that mountain. There was no bus that would take us up there. We were left only with a taxi. Well, I borrowed the money from the translator, and that's what we did. We went back home, and I said to the translator, look, we've got some money at home. I left some money with my wife, so as soon as we get back there, I will reimburse you. Well, we got home. I went to my wife and I said, can I have the money that I left with you? And she said, I don't have it. Now, I was a little bit surprised because you're on the top of a mountain, there's no shops, there's nowhere to go and spend money, so why didn't she have it? And she explained to me that somebody had come to the door begging. They had used the universal symbol saying that they wanted some food, and my wife had managed somehow to explain that we didn't have any food, that she was waiting for food to come. The woman had looked around and seen my wife's shoes there in the hallway and indicated that she'd like the shoes, and my wife had to explain to her again using sign language that she only had that one pair of shoes, and so no, that wasn't possible. And then the woman used that universal sign for currency, and she went like that, indicating she wanted some money. My wife opened her purse to show her that she only had one banknote, and that was all she had. The woman saw it, reached out, took the money, and off she went before my wife could stop her. So I got back home in debt to the translator to find out that we had no money. Now, as I say, we were missionaries out there, so how would you expect a missionary to respond to that situation? I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, well, obviously you got on your knees and you prayed to God and you asked God for deliverance to help you in this situation. I wish I could say that was what we did. Unfortunately, I reacted in an all too human fashion, and I started to tear my hair out, to despair of the fact that here we were in a foreign country up on this mountain. I've got no money, I'm in debt, how can God do this to me? All of the things that a missionary is not supposed to be doing. Well, about 10-15 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I went to answer the door, and there was a member of the church that we were working with who said, how are you? Is everything all right? And I lied and said, yes, everything's fine. And he said to me, how are you doing financially? I, again, lied in my response. And I said, oh, everything's okay. No problem. He came into the house and he said, well, we've been discussing your situation. And because you're foreigners here in a foreign land, and because you're not used to the way things are done here, we thought that probably the money wouldn't last you. And at that point, he reached his hand into his pocket. He said, I've come to give you some extra money on top of your stipend to help you through the time. It was a very sobering experience because I recognized what had just happened. You see, this man lived over half an hour's journey from where we lived. I only knew that I was in need 15 minutes before. So what that meant was 15 minutes before I knew that we had no money, he was already on his way. God had already sent him to provide for my needs. The lesson was a very simple one. It wasn't God saying to me, John, you must be on your knees begging, praying for all these things. Actually, what God was saying to me was, I know your needs before you do. I have made the solution for your needs before you even know they are there. But John, it would be nice if you acknowledge me in all of this. It was a big lesson to learn. And as we continued our time on the mission field, we were taught many lessons like this, that if you have faith, if you trust in God, he will come through for you. You don't have to tell God what your needs are. He knows already. As the scriptures say, if he clothes and feeds the birds and the animals, surely for his people, he's going to look after them as well. I pray that you are using this time of lockdown to get that little bit closer to God, to recognize that he indeed can look after you, and he delights in looking after you, so that we in turn can raise up hymns and prayers of praise saying, thank you because I know there is a God in heaven, because he is taking care of me. Stay close to God. Spend time in prayer and study with him. Above all, stay safe. God bless.